So very warm welcome to everybody on this stage, international stage B for this afternoon in Nuremberg. We're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and I'm very pleased to have some high-ranking guests here with me who'd like to discuss with you and me about all those benefits and maybe problems AI might bring to cybersecurity, to life in general. I'm Norbert Luckhardt, Chief Editor of CES Information Security Journal, and I kind of moderate this expert group today. So I'd like to welcome to your far right, Carsten Pinnow. He's managing partner of Pinnow & Partners. Welcome. Then we have, I think, Marco, right? Marco Eggerling, CISO from EMEA for Checkpoint Software. I think I need a bigger page next time. Then we have Rick Ferguson, VP Security Intelligence with Forescout. We have a wrong name on my list here. Nate Howe, I might remember, from Zscaler, right? Okay, we need to correct that next time. And we have Martin Krämer, Security Awareness Advocate from KnowBe4. So, AI. Everybody talks about it quite some time now. Is it a hype? Is it a disruptive thing which will change the way we doing security, which changes the way we will live? So our first question, so what is the current state of AI, of its applications, benefits, risks? And let's start with cybersecurity, because that's what we're doing. So, Carsten, if you would like to start, just go ahead and we'll see what your initial statements are.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation. And yeah, first of all, we have to talk about AI itself, because it's basically misunderstood by most people. On one hand, you have the thinking that it is a black box with an intelligence of a PhD, and it knows all, it solves all. You just put your questions, and voila, your problem is solved. We know that as 42 as a solution in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. On the other hand, you have people thinking about loss of human control and of Terminator-like scenarios. And the reality is something in between. So if you're talking about cybersecurity and AI, it can be used as a dual-use tool. It can be used for both, for the good and the bad.
So, cybersecurity, AI, well, would you say the benefits will be more important than the risks, or is it more or less equal situation?
Well, I'm not sure about this at the moment. From my point of view, at the moment, the attackers are in the lead at the moment, because in many companies and many organizations, there's still not, many people don't think that it's needed to handle that topic. But in fact, you have to handle it, you have to care about it, because your attackers will use these things. So, you can use it even for countermeasures against ransomware attacks, to see what are the indicators of compromise, and you can use it for automation, especially. You're talking about the lack of people who caring about, and it makes it easier for the simple tasks to handle, so that your people, that your staff is able to handle the hard problems.
Okay.
Can I add to that? Something that I find funny when people talk about artificial intelligence is that everyone thinks they understand what AI is. In many cases, vendors, consulting companies, and especially with the end customers, it's a misconception. Sometimes they refer to machine learning, but say AI. And this is something that we need to dismantle, right? We cannot assume that by magic, something like artificial intelligence came to us and now it's here, right? Artificial intelligence is not the evolution of machine learning, right? It's something completely different. It has been created for a single purpose. And then this purpose became its own little creature and found the way out of the Pandora's box, and now we have it. So when we as vendors, when we address problems that are based on artificial intelligence technologies, then they are usually very narrow in design and the capabilities, and then they expand as we go, based on the data, based on the capabilities, based on the statistical models that underlie this. Everything else really is machine learning, and we should be honest to the markets that we do business with that there is a distinction, and not everything is artificial intelligence just for the sheer joy of it.
As you just mentioned machine learning, well, I think that the big hype now is the large language models, ChatGPT and so on. That's not quite the kind of AI we're talking about when we're regarding to cybersecurity, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not. A large language model, by design, is something that is very scientific. This is not something that was, it's not a product, let's put it this way, right? You cannot go in and say, I'm going to buy LLM and make it do things, and then suddenly it happens, right? It's something that you need to take as an evolutionary measure and then train it to do certain things and make it be what it is, right? Automation is mostly based or stems from the idea of using a large language model for a very specific, narrow purpose and make it do the things that it's supposed to be done, right? But this is not that you can buy an LLM and then all of a sudden you have automation for everything. This is not how that goes.
So it's more about pattern matching, machine learning.
Training it a specific purpose that it serves, and only that. And if you look at stuff like OpenAI's ChatGPT, it is kind of predicting human language to an extent where you think that us humans, we can interact with it, right? And it does that pretty well, right? Sometimes it hallucinates a little bit and comes up with funny stories, right? But that's the sheer joy of it, right? If this were perfect, we wouldn't be talking about it, but use it all the time. Everyone who has ever used ChatGPT for some purpose realizes it's sometimes results, gives you funny results. Sometimes they're humorous and sometimes they're just completely off the wall. But that also shows that there is an evolution that sits behind it with the different versionings, with the sharpness of the data that sits underneath it, the training purposes and all of this, right? So there will be a point in a, I guess, not too far away future where a GPT product will be able to offload many of the hotline tasks that you would usually find in companies where you ask some bot instead of a human, and it comes back with good enough sound answers for you to walk away with. And that's a narrow corridor that it satisfies. This thing is not built to be a poetry machine or a recipe book or something like this. It's being abused to do that.
Okay. Rick, what's on your mind?
I'm so glad you phrased the question in that way. Because I'm trying hard not to look angry while I'm sitting here in the middle of the panel, but I'm really angry and I'm really disappointed with myself. I was very close to not agreeing to do the panel, and I'll explain why. Because the people that I'm looking at from here are significantly more diverse than the people I'm looking at up here. And I have a long-standing commitment since 2017 not to do manels, which is what you're sitting watching right now. What you're looking at is reflective of a wider laziness or ignorance or unwillingness to create and pursue diversity in cybersecurity in general. And when it comes to AI, ironically, this is hugely reflective of all of the biases that get built into AI models and machine learning models, which are being used to make decisions that affect everybody's everyday life on an ongoing basis. So I asked Twitter and I asked LinkedIn earlier on today, what should I do? Should I pull out last minute or should I say something? And I think we all agreed that hopefully there's somewhat more of an impact by me sitting here and saying this before we continue with the discussion than just not being here at all. So I apologize to you for the fact that we're all middle-aged white guys.
Here.
Following on from your comments as regards to AI, now I have to calm down a little bit. I wasn't looking forward to saying it, but it had to be said. You were talking about creating models to make decisions that will affect things that affect us in our physical, real-world, everyday lives, right? And you were talking, I think the words you used were Sometimes it makes mistakes and hallucinates a little bit, and we all know that, and we all laugh about it. I think one of the areas that needs to be addressed in particularly the LLM area of AI is how generative adversarial networks are trained, because that's what causes the hallucinations that we see with things like ChatGPT. So the way, if I try and simplify it incredibly, the way that a generative adversarial network works is you have a generator and you have a discriminator. The generator makes some content, and the discriminator makes the decision about whether that looks real or not real. Draw a picture of a cat, straight line. That doesn't look like a cat. Draw a picture of a cat, straight line with 2 upside down V's. Looks a bit more like a cat, but I still don't believe it's a cat. And so the conversation goes on until the discriminator says, oh, what a lovely cat. And then you have content. What that means is that the drive behind how that training is carried out is on credibility, not on accuracy. And that's why you can have a conversation with ChatGPT and it can lie to you completely, incessantly, apologize then for the fact that it lied, and then lie again. Because it doesn't actually understand the meaning of anything that it's telling you. It understands the statistical probability of one word appearing next to another word. So we have to work out how we change that learning model to bring accuracy to the table as well as credibility. Otherwise, the way it is right now, it's absolutely a tool in the hands of people wishing to create and disseminate disinformation in an incredibly credible way. And if you look at here's a really interesting thing, right? I'm still on Twitter, not X. I'm still on Twitter, for better or for worse. The current violence in Israel is the first time that I haven't been able to go to Twitter and get the truth. Every other disaster that's happened before they ripped apart the verified user scheme, you could go to Twitter and quite easily find reliable sources that wasn't disinformation. We now have a major social network which is not fulfilling its obligations under the DSA, the Digital Services Act. Facebook's had a letter from Thierry Breton as well, by the same regard, which is a fantastic vehicle for industrializing the dissemination of disinformation, backed up with the tools that are at our disposal now for the creation, not just of the content itself, the images, the videos, the text, but also the armies of accounts and personas that you need to make it credible, to build a credible back history, to make a bunch of sensible tweets, and then drop in an occasional disinformation, and then another army to amplify it. That's the world we live in today. It's not weaponized like that yet. Give it 2 years. Looking at the way Twitter is now around the situation in Israel, we're going to be in big trouble 2 years from now when it comes to separating reality from fantasy and truth from fiction. That's our greatest challenge over the next decade.
So this is mostly true, I think, about these large language models. When we look closer to information security, we are more into selective training, aren't we? So is that the difference which can be the game changer to use AI in security instead of general applications?
Certainly, I mean, we don't have generalized AI right now, right? That still is a distant goal. In fact, Sam Altman was jokingly tweeted about it about a week ago. We have general AI, and everybody went, what? He went, smoke. Literally, he tweeted that. So we're a long way from generalized AI anyway. ChatGPT kind of fools us a bit and looks like it, but it's not. It's good at making text. That's all it's good at. It's still one job. Just one job that can be more widely applied. What you have to understand from a cybersecurity perspective is that we've been using AI and machine learning is AI, it's just a subset of AI, in cybersecurity for a long time. As far back definitely as 2005, we were using AI for spam detection. Then we started to use AI for URL classification, because you can't do that with humans. There's too many URLs. Then we used it for exploit detection in browsers. So you land on an exploit kit, and it tries to exploit a vulnerability in your browser or plugins. We were using AI to detect that activity happening. We've used AI for writing style analysis even before LLMs existed to try and combat business email compromise. And most recently, I suppose, the one that made all the headlines, in marketing anyway, we started to use AI to detect malicious files. We tried to do it before, but it had a lot of false positives. When ransomware got huge, we discovered that AI was very good at finding ransomware because of the way ransomware is built. So suddenly it became another tool in the box. So as defenders, we, vendors, and you, practitioners, we've all been using AI for a long time. And many of you probably didn't even realize that AI was under the hood because it wasn't something that we spoke about as a headline thing. It was a back-end technology. ChatGPT has become more publicly accessible. You can interact with it. Journalists can interact with it and make headlines and stories, so it got a lot more column inches, but it's still specific use case stuff. Definitely when it comes to using ChatGPT from a defender perspective, we need to be much better at training it for a specific purpose, whether that's as a co-pilot in a SOC environment. You can do it for deobfuscation of complex JavaScript, for example. You want to know what it does, put it in an LLM and it will tell you. For chaining together events and making sense of them, creating reports that you can give to the board, or a different report about the exact same thing that you can give to the SOC. User has different requirements. For those kinds of things, absolutely, we can begin to use LLMs, and a lot of people in these two halls are already talking about it, but we've got to solve the hallucination problem first, because if you're using that in a security environment, you can't afford lies.
Yeah, thanks. Nate, what about you?
I actually want to double down on what Rick just said, specifically the fact that everybody here has been dealing in exactly what AI eats up, which is data, logs, and information that we've all been stealing for years. I remember my first SOC I built in Australia many years ago. We actually dealt with the fact that there was information overload. And so we wrote scripts that you arguably could say was early machine learning. I remember the T-shirt that said it was written in it was in Python. It said, leave me alone or I will replace you with a very short Python script, which is clearly what we've tried to do and automate. But I think we're also in a situation to kind of connect to the LLMs. LLMs are dealing with general language. IT, packets, bits, it's pretty standard. We know what a malicious packet looks like. We can tell if something is crafted incorrectly. We know that. But what do we do with it? That's the question, is where we connect a lot of these dots together. We have an accurate data set today. We already know frameworks, we have standards. We can follow that. But the challenge is then how do we then use that to then take action? And I think the thing that I see the most coming out of AI is not just the detection, but the action. I think the thing that becomes most interesting for us as the practitioner, or you the practitioners, us the vendors, and overall the defenders, is, as to use your phrasing, is that we need to use the information to be able to take action. And how we do that is going to be differential in every organization. Just because a manufacturer like Siemens says this is a threat doesn't mean a food company like Nestle is going to make that same decision. So we have to give that insight, and that's where LLMs will pay into that, to help give visibility into and strength into that decision. But I'd also state that the key here is to also make sure that we're making actions based upon what is important to the business. And honestly, that's the hardest part now, is taking what is in someone's brain, what is a key business factor, and driving it into the outcome of a security solution that is being driven by knowledge and intelligence from standardized packets, et cetera. So the goal is great. We're doing a lot of fantastic things, a lot of vendors doing a lot of very cool things. But I actually argue to everybody here is your goal is to figure out, what does AI actually mean to you? What is your business going to drive from it? Yes, it could create some cool marketing campaigns. Yes, it could actually help you drive some SOAR. But really, what is the business value, other than being a cool bucket on an executive report? You need to make sure we drive the right things. Otherwise, you're going to end up feeding the negative system, which is wrong outcomes into wrong solutions, and then you end up in this cycle. And ultimately, and I think it was yesterday, the Wall Street Journal released an article about the cost of running an LLM. That in itself, it should be indicative. We're going to have this situation where businesses go out and buy all this cool tech from all these cool vendors, and then it costs a lot of money to run it. So again, back to the business goal. What do you actually want to get out of it? What are you willing to invest to get out of it? It comes back, unfortunately, to ROI. As much as I'm a nerd, that's what's growing the business.
To my mind, nowadays we often hear suggestions AI will be the solution to not finding workforce. And, well, is this true?
I mean, it depends on the job, right? And it depends on the business. I can say from my life, historically, I used to work at Nestle in full disclosure, and I remember going into a factory and seeing a lady stand there with like a trowel, and her job was to smooth the chocolate out. That was her job. Now, that could have been easily replaced by an actuator 30 years ago, but they wanted to give that job to somebody. So to answer your question, it comes down to the business case. Do they want to support the local community? Do they want to replace that person with a small Perl script? I mean, it's up to them.
And I think you got to recognize, we've been here before, right? A world where people live in fear of technology and say, it's going to put us all out of work. This is not the first time we've been to this rodeo, right?
Absolutely not. Yep.
Well, yeah, computers will make everything easier, faster.
I mean, industrialization of the Industrial Revolution, that many 100 years ago, had the same effect. What happened? Actually, people's lives got better. The worst jobs disappeared. The dangerous jobs disappeared. The jobs that nobody wanted to do disappeared. Technology makes our lives better because I feel like as humanity, one thing that we all have in common, if there is one thing, is that actually we all want a slightly easier life. We would all like to relax a little bit more, whoever you are and whatever you do and whatever you believe. So that's how we tend to, long-term, implement technology to reach that goal.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Martin, your turn.
Yeah, and I like that perspective. So we are in this to make our lives easier, to produce better products, to protect businesses in a better way, for sure. One thing, I'm going to state like one fundamental truth, I think, and then I want to point out a few things that I've been picking up on. So one thing I think is the obvious. AI is available to attackers and defenders alike, right? And in cybersecurity, we've always been grappling with the imbalance between the attacker and the defender. We need to defend against all possible scenarios, whereas the attackers only need to succeed once, right? And so with AI, we are just inviting, if you want, a huge new threat surface into our businesses, and a surface that we don't quite understand yet. And if we look at the research that's available on AI and how it evolves, we might even be grappling to understand it ever, like fully. You know, it is, after all, the hope that it will reach beyond our human intelligence, but let's not go there. Let's not go there yet. So I think what we need to really point out here is that for the time being, we need our human perspective, not just to develop better products, but also to guide them in the right directions, to come up with the right frameworks that can inform how we go about developing and also using these technologies. And I really like what you said, Rick. These, especially LLMs, are trained on credibility rather than accuracy, right? So what does that mean if we take this one step further? If all I do is appear credible in front of you, then I want you to trust me. But now, suddenly you have a technology in front of you where you've been told by us, by many other people, you shouldn't necessarily trust it. So what happens is here we run risk to lose the one fundamental thing we need in cybersecurity, which is trust. And I think there's a huge risk in losing that perspective. And I have to say that, of course, because it's the human perspective that matters here. So as humans, we need to be able to trust in the technology we use to protect our businesses. And I think that's a very important point here.
It's a big landmine as well, though, isn't it? I think you're a very brave person to use the word trust in a conversation about cybersecurity, because walk around both of these halls and probably the two words that you'll see next to each other more than any other is zero trust. And that's kind of where cybersecurity is moving to, right? It's where we eliminate trust from decision-making in general. One thing that really strikes me about the threat from AI in terms of using credible information to build attack vehicles to get into companies is something I was speaking about in my presentation yesterday, is when we talk about the vulnerabilities in cybersecurity, we tend to have this laser focus. When someone says vulnerability, you think code, right? I say vulnerability, you say code. Because that's what we all think. It's a vulnerability in firmware, it's a vulnerability in code, it's a vulnerability in a misconfiguration or not insecure by default or insecure by design. We have to remember it's really incumbent on us as cybersecurity professionals, and hugely relevant to the threat from credible-looking attackers. Vulnerabilities are also present in processes. And it's those vulnerabilities that socially engineered attacks aim to take advantage of. If you're an organization like MGM, and you have built your processes in such a way that one social engineering phone call to get some user credentials can take out all your casinos, you built a shitty process. And that's it. So we need to examine not just the technology that we have and secure the technology, but we have to look at how we do business and what our processes are in the light of the kind of threats we're going to face, not just from today's attackers doing social engineering over the phone and ransomware attackers, but also from automated and, in the future, autonomous, AI-driven social engineering attacks, because they're the most likely ones. We're not, I hate to call people out, so I'm not going to be specific, but contrary to what you may have heard, not on this panel, but contrary to what you may have heard, attackers are not using AI right now. Attackers are not using AI right now. Statement of fact. So anyone tells you they are, ask for concrete and specific examples, and tell me, because I'd be really interested to hear about them. Attackers may be experimenting with AI, but the people that are using it right now are researchers, and they're making proofs of concept, and they're writing and publishing papers. We did one at Forescout. We said, let's take a vulnerability in a specific programming language and use ChatGPT, actually, to transfer it into another programming language that we actually don't know, which was a programming language called Go. Go is great because it's very cross-platform applicable. So we managed to get a working exploit from one language to another with no working knowledge of the destination language with the help of AI. But it was a proof of concept. We have no demonstrable proof that attackers are using AI right now.
So when they start using it, will this make the asymmetry of defense and attacks worse or better?
It's going to be the same thing as all. So I was listening into the conversations that you guys had. I think we fundamentally agree on the fact that artificial intelligence is something that is ramping up. It's not currently used by the bad guys, but it will. We have seen all of this before we even had the discussion about artificial intelligence, right? This is not new. None of this is new, right? It was when the automation train took off, right? Everyone was using automation to defend themselves against something that was attacking using automation scripts, right? So it's really stacking up on stuff. The same thing is going to happen with artificial intelligence regardless, right? The moment it becomes an industrialized product that you can take and throw at something, the bad guys will use it as much as the good guys, and I assume that everyone here is a good guy, to defend themselves, right? So there will be no distinction in the quality of the AI or the way that it uses. It's simply similar to how, at this point in time, ransomware gangs are coming after us. Some of these guys are coming by bike, and the others are taking the speedboat, right? It is stacking up on capabilities, and eventually it's an arms race. That's all it is, right? So at this point in time, it is a little bit of science fiction, I would think, right? But it's very real already, right? We can feel it. The moment it turns into reality, we will all know, because then the traditional metrics and the traditional ways of defending organizations will probably fail. Not completely, but they will fail. And they'll fail us in a way that we have to stack up new ways of defending, and that very quickly. And that's kind of the scary statement du jour, right? Because that's something that we cannot project as in, then it happens. The moment it happens, we will know. The way that most of the vendors that are represented here in this hall and those who have attended RSA conference this year, they're currently using it to create awareness. And I think that's the professional way of doing it, right? None of us are going in and saying, we solved it, that's how we do it, right? And none of the clients that we serve can at this point in time say, we've got it in control, nothing to worry about. The reality is, at this stage, it's all experimental. It will be different than we all assume. And the only thing that we can do as professionals is try and stay on top of it as good as we can and inform the communities that we're all in, so that you guys know before something else potentially comes after you, so that you at least have a little bit of a head start. But my assumption is that it's already in the making. We have seen some very shy approaches to making use of it in an intelligent way to multiply attacks, right? But it has not yet been industrialized. The moment that happens, the whole dynamic changes.
And I think you actually hit on an interesting topic which also plays into the theories around AI. Some of you might have heard of the idea of mirror chess, where if you play chess against yourself and copy the exact same move, you're ultimately damned, basically. And that's basically what we're saying from Marco's saying, is if we're going into this right now, defending ourselves and our organizations based on the normal things we know, and then we think the attacker is going to follow a certain path, because that's the AI playbook that we figured out that they would, we're going to defend against that. but we're not going to see the attack coming from the other way. So we need to be aware of the fact that we can't follow the standardized playbooks. Yes, we need to learn, but we have to adapt much quicker than the adversaries, because they will be way ahead of us in terms of, oh, that didn't work. And to Rick's point about even just the use of tools, like from a social point of view with the video calling and the audio calling nowadays, they're adapting. Every failure is an adaptation. Every failure for us is a win. Hey, we won, we saved, nothing happened today, cool, move on to the next one. They've learned, they've adapted. Then they've played that mirror chess game, and they've learned from it, and they've moved on. And we have to be aware of that ourselves as well.
And I think that's where we'll see the most rapid innovation by threat actors is in the management of campaigns, not in the stuff that gets delivered to you, not in the payload, but in the back-end management. If you look at phishing campaigns or spam campaigns right now, every different iteration of a spam email or a phishing email carries a campaign code. The threat actors have looked at legitimate business and they see how it works and they replicate that in their own business. So they can track which links in which formatted emails did people actually click on and which ones got ignored and which ones got detected by spam, so they can refine and learn and re-disseminate in a new and improved way. AI will play a huge role for the richer, more organized, more talented threat actors, basically the ransomware threat actors, in campaign management, because they'll want to automate all of that back end.
Definitely, and I would like to illustrate the point that right now we are aware AI is available, but not necessarily used by the attackers, using phishing emails as an example. Because of course we can look at reports and we can see that the amount of phishing emails has spiked, has increased by 300%. That's as much as some reports state. The fact is, what we can observe based on emails that our customers report is that what has spiked is not the perfect text or the advanced imagery. It is QR codes. So it's a simple evolution that gets through all of the technical defenses and then lands in people's inboxes. Doesn't mean AI might not be used in the future. The storm is brewing. We're just waiting for it. We're just waiting for it. And we can see that professionalization of threat actors and many other examples. So you mentioned ransomware. And of course, there have been studies, right? When Lockbit had their breach, etc. We know how professionally organized they are, and we know that they are essentially outsourcing some of their capabilities. So it's basically, ransomware as a service is a thing already. Disinformation as a service. We're probably just waiting for that to happen, and we will see it very soon. Elections are coming up worldwide. I think that's when we will see it, definitely.
Yeah, we already saw it in disinformation, not as a service, but disinformation has been highly deployed at the time of the Slovakian elections, which just happened. We're seeing it in huge volumes right now because of Israel. There's an election where I live this weekend in Poland. There'll be a lot of disinformation and nastiness around that. And there are a lot of elections coming up in Africa, which is strategically important both for Russia and for China. So there's going to be a lot at play there. And one thing that LLMs do is they do give people linguistic ability that they might have otherwise found hard to come by.
Not just referendum, not just in elections, but referendums as well.
Yes, hello.
Same problem in my country right now.
Brexit. Yeah. Thank you, Putin.
And talking about the attackers, they're probably, they have the easy task. They can just go ahead and, if it's not working, it's not working. If the defense is not working, we have a problem, or we double our problems. So, Carsten, maybe, what do we have to avoid at all cost as a defender when it comes to AI?
Well, first of all, my impression from the discussion so far is that my long-standing opinion is confirmed. Cybersecurity is a question of processes, of human, of technology all along. And it is with AI and it is without. This is what Ulrich said before. If you are not prepared for a cybersecurity attack, it doesn't matter if you have knowledge of AI or not. So what do we have to do? We have to have enough budget in companies. We have to have enough knowledge in companies. And we have to have enough resources of time for people for preparing such attacks. This is the most important things. We can talk a little bit longer about this, but it is the basics you have to do.
I think related to that as well, you can't take your eye off the ball. Threat actors don't innovate until we force them to innovate. That's why over 90% of the attacks that we see today still start with a phishing email, because it works. Threat actors are not going to burn zero-day vulnerabilities when they could just send a phishing email. That's why the next iteration that we saw around trying to get credentials and get them to work was MFA fatigue. And MFA fatigue is just incredibly easy. Use the credentials you have, makes a pop-up come up on someone's phone to annoy them into eventually clicking yes, allow. And if that doesn't work, phone them up and pretend to be tech support and say, oh, I can see you have a problem with a lot of pop-ups. And you go, yeah, I do. Need you to click the next one and the problem will go away. No problem. It's just social engineering and it's easy. So it's phishing, it's links, it's watering holes, it's exploit kits. It's all the stuff that we've seen for 20 years. And until we force threat actors to change by getting better at defending ourselves, there is no reason why they're going to spend the money and make the effort to use AI. And they don't need to.
And that's the point you just said, spend the money. I would go so far in saying that the bad guys are pretty good at economics, because they're basically, as Rick said, they're reusing and recycling an approach to save money. Some of them are well-funded, and they are casting out quite comprehensive attacks that are unprecedented in style and type. But those are the minorities. The lion's share of them, they're sitting in a laboratory trying to dream up a way to make some money off of an attack and make it cheap as possible, right? Yep. Because it's an economical thing after all. They have to rent the compute space. They have to rent their service architecture, SaaS and RAS, right? Ransomware as a service. They all cost money. And funnily enough, they pay them using credit cards, so you can think of how they're getting to their credit card data. But in the end, if we, on the defense side, if we are playing the same game, just with different economic dimensions, then we have to be smart about how we invest. Because these guys can always go and recharge. It's almost indefinite in the way they can do it, right? From my side, not so much, because we have to play the game the white way versus these guys playing it the black way. And this is one of the things that I'd like everyone to walk away with. There is an economic dimension to which this thing is eventually opening itself up. It's going to be an unfair game because we have to defend with finite resources against something that is almost indefinite. And that's where artificial intelligence could potentially be a game changer, because it takes that dollar symbol or the euro symbol or the other currency symbols out of the equation. If automation is there, it's not for free, but it's very cheap. And if both are stacking up, then it's not so much a commercial discussion or a commercial game that they're fighting over. It's really a resources game. And this is where it could become interesting in the future, because they have to pay for the resources they use, while our resources are finite by design.
So, I hate to say it, we only have 5 minutes left, incredibly. I hailed you with saying we probably could fill 2 more hours with this topic, right? So, for the last round, more or less a minute for each of you, I want to ask you, so what's happening? What's going to change? Is it really this big disruptive thing which is going to come on us? Or is it just another tool, just another race of arms, just another round in the very much the same game we already played for years and years? Martin, if you may start, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to basically point out what has been said already. So yes, things are changing, and we need to be prepared for it. What does that mean? That means we are given a unique opportunity for once to maybe stay ahead. As an example, deepfakes, video fakes. I'm not aware of any successful attacks that would have used it yet. If someone knows one, please tell me. So we are still in a position where we can research and develop defenses, technical defenses that can help us. But we must not forget what was mentioned just now. It's people, process, and technology. So let's not forget the process side, and let's not forget that we also need to equip people who make important security decisions with the right tools. And that's where we should be investing right now.
I mean, that's a great example of a business case and following what a business needs. And I actually will take it the technical path. And I'd actually say the one thing that we can start to remember is that we already have the building blocks to be able to leverage AI for our businesses in our ecosystems today. The challenge is, and for those of you who are using multiple products, is how do you get the right information in the right place to make that decision so you can start impacting your business. So I would actually step back and follow Martin's lead and say, well, hold on, what are we doing with the information we have? Can we start using it to benefit our business? and then make a decision on which technologies you are going to implement. And to follow on what Marco said is also figure out where our cost benefit's going to be. I'm business oriented in this regards, but I think that's the biggest thing in terms of new technologies, because this is the precipice of an incredibly new scenario for all of us. Even our parents, my parents, are talking about AI. That didn't happen 30 years ago with other technologies. This is amazing. So we have to be ready for it. How do we deal with that? We need to make a decision in our businesses as to what the benefits are going to be to us and what we want to drive towards, and spend the money accordingly.
Yeah, nice. I think that we in the security industry, we and you in the security industry, have a tendency to be very much like a magpie, you know, the black and white bird that likes shiny things. That's all of us. AI and LLMs is a big shiny thing right now. New products and great marketing are often quite distracting as big shiny things. We need to break out of that mindset. You need to stop focusing on the shiny thing. You need to stop buying shelfware, like stuff that you never deploy. You need to consider when you make purchase decisions, do you have the people that can actually use this product? Or are you going to just have a pane of glass that no one ever looks at? You have to stop buying and deploying for the sake of ticking boxes, for hitting compliance targets. Hit them in a sensible way, not in a POV way or ticking boxes from a single vendor. So break out of that magpie mentality, and the same is true when you're looking at threats. Actually, I feel like this industry over the last 20 years got much better at not spreading FUD, you know, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It actually got quite a lot better. Something happened with AI where we all fell right back down that hole, and you see people giving Terminator presentations. But that shit's not happening. But you have to take care of the everyday, pedestrian, boring stuff, and in particular, like I said before, go and work out how your company functions and fix those things.
We're still fighting the same demons. The modernization of weapon is what changed. This is my assessment. You said the last 20 years. I can look back almost 25 now. When everything started, it was pretty similar to this. Artificial intelligence is now the new kid on the block, right? It's been little overused as a fashion theme, I would say. Very few of us understand what it really entails. That's for us to be seen. It's also a cultural thing. We need to accept that AI came to change the world. We heard before that industrial revolution. It's part of an industrial revolution. It's part of changing the way that we have done things in the past and will now do in the future. I don't think artificial intelligence is something that is scary. It's something that opens up a horrendous amount of opportunities. We just need to make sure that Pandora's box remains under control. Once this thing unfolds on us and does its dance in its way, then that's obviously a negative thing. But for me, from a professional point of view, I think there is opportunity in it that we haven't had before. And for us as humans in principle, I think it's going to make our lives a little more easier. But we have to obviously relearn. And that's the piece where the Industrial Revolution came in. Back in the day when you were riding a train, there was this guy up front with a shovel that did the dance all the day. Nowadays, you have a guy in a tailored suit that drives a 300 miles per hour train and rarely ever touches a button. So artificial intelligence is going to have exactly the same impact on us, just a different vector, perhaps.
Norbert, you see me smiling a little bit. I think we have to cool down a little bit. Decades ago, there was a program called ELIZA. It was a little bit like behaving like ChatGPT, not that wide range of questions, but it was, and people were excited at this time, as they are today with ChatGPT and all that other stuff we have. And you see that AI is a tool, in fact. You can use it for both as a dual-use tool. You can use for the good and for the bad. And you see that it's getting normal because there is a standard coming up next year in the 27000 series, 2790, which is going to live in the next year. So be calm and enjoy yourself and educate yourself in that field.
Keep calm and carry on.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly what was on my mind. So next are queuing. So without any further ado, thank you very much. Thank you for your interest. Have a nice day. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks and goodbye.
Thank you.